In this video, we're going to talk through 2 example student responses to question 2 on our Eduqas style English Language Component 1 exam paper. Don't forget, you can pause the video at any point if you need a bit more time to read over what's on screen. In this type of question, you'll be given line numbers from the text to focus on, and then asked a question assessing your ability to explain, comment on, and analyse how the writer uses language. Here the question we'll be looking at is, what impression does the writer create of the dolls in lines 14 to 29? The question also tells you that you have to refer to the language used in the text and use relevant subject terminology where appropriate. Remember, subject terminology here refers to your comments on language used in the extract and exploring its effect. It doesn't mean you have to become an expert at identifying things like nouns, verbs, and adverbs. As always, you should box off the relevant lines in the text yourself, so you don't lose track when you're reading through the extract. There are only 5 marks for this question, so the examiner isn't expecting you to write reams and reams. You just need to comment on a range. For 5 marks, this means 4 or 5 pieces of evidence that will enable you to form accurate impressions. Because you only have 6 or 7 minutes to write a response to this 5-mark question, it's best to only highlight the evidence in the text and not annotate. You can save your ideas for when you write them down in your response. This is because it's about coverage to show your full understanding, not going into depth on a few points. Now let's take a look at student A's response to this question. Press pause now to give yourself time to read it through carefully, and press play again when you're ready. This student would receive a band 3, or 3 marks out of 5, which is the national average for this question. Great! What an examiner would really like about this response is its focus on the question. Student A continually uses the word impression, 4 times to be exact. But unfortunately for this student, they've worked harder for some of the marks than they needed to. For example, here they try to zoom in on a word, craze, but simply repeat in slightly different words, crazy. They've already commented on the word craze when they discussed the popularity of the dolls, so there's no need to comment on the same part of the quotation again. After this, they again continue with the impression of the dolls being popular through a new piece of evidence. The newborn, the 6-month-old baby, the year-old, the 18-month-old child able to stand and walk. But because this is the same impression just repeated, they wouldn't be awarded any more marks. More marks would be awarded for a variety of different and accurate impressions that are implied by a range of quotations. For example, student A should have thought about other reasons for there being a range of dolls. Different people want different ages, showing that there's something for every mother, as demonstrated by the newborn and the 6-month-old baby. Now let's take a look at student B's response and see how it differs. Press pause now to give yourself time to read it through, and press play again when you're ready. Straight away, we can see that student B has written roughly the same amount as student A, but student B would be awarded a band 5, the highest band, for their accurate coverage of impressions. They've made 5 valid points: popular, pride, fulfillment, replacement, and deception. Clearly, this student has a methodical approach. They use connectives such as immediately, clearly, following this, and finally to guide the examiner through the extract chronologically. They outline their impression, support it with a quote, and explain what the quote reveals about the dolls. This approach helps the student to stay focused on what the question is asking, what impression the writer creates of the dolls in these lines. Overall, student B demonstrates a thorough understanding of the question and the extract. To support you in achieving an effortless response like this, it might help to practice taking a longer quote and breaking it down into the crucial and revealing points. For example, student B could have used the whole quote from the text. It had been years since he had last seen a doll thus paraded, but instead they identified that the key word in the quote to form the impression of pride was the verb paraded. So they only included this one word, saving them time. It's important to note here that this student has also used subject terminology, but only once and only where it mattered. This hasn't limited their mark. What's refreshing is that their response isn't driven by techniques and subject terminology. It's more about what evidence helps them form an accurate impression. If this is a technique, brilliant. If not, it doesn't matter. Comment on it anyway. You can still get full marks even if you don't know the name of a particular technique. This is an incredibly important tip for us to finish on. Now, why not try student B's approach yourself with a practice question? Good luck!